A fire no one saw coming, a vault no one could open, and a truth no one expected. Welcome to Unsolved Mystery Vault. I'm your moderator Falcon. Drop a comment, your perspective sharpens every clue. I appreciate every message. Let's begin the chase. Ashes of Windlow Manor Chapter 1. A light that should not be. Mrs. Adelaide Gray sat at her writing desk, the soft glow of an oil lamp pooling across the paper beneath her hand. Outside her cottage window, the village of Willowbridge lay wrapped in its usual nighttime quiet, chimneys sleeping under the autumn sky, the harbor a faint silver ribbon in the distance, and Windlow Hill rising like a dark spine against the moon. Adelaide liked evenings like this, calm, orderly, predictable. A good hour for writing to her nephew, or for arranging her herb drawers, or for listening to the night settle into its familiar rhythm. But the night did not settle. It shifted. A flicker of movement caught her eye. She turned toward the window. Up on Windlow Hill, where the trees curled like skeletal fingers around the abandoned manor, something glowed in the darkness. A soft light. Weak. Flickering. A lantern. Adelaide's pen paused mid-sentence. Her eyes narrowed, studying the distant manor with a kind of sharp, silent attention few people would ever expect from an elderly woman with snow-white hair and a soft shawl around her shoulders. Windlow Manor had been dark for 16 years. Ever since the fire. Ever since the night Gregory Lockridge's younger brother perished, leaving behind whispers of tragedy and misfortune. The manor had been boarded up, ownership disputed, the grounds avoided by locals who claimed the very air still smelled faintly of smoke. And yet, tonight, a lantern burned inside it. Adelaide rose, gently pushing her chair back. She stepped closer to the window, her breath ghosting the glass. Now who, she murmured, would choose such a night to visit a place like that? The lantern swayed once, almost like a signal. A small shiver traced the length of her spine. Signals had been used in Willowbridge long before her time, fishermen communicating from cliff to boat, lovers caught in secret rendezvous, smugglers guiding partners through the fog. A lantern signal always meant one thing: someone wanted to be seen. Adelaide pulled her shawl tighter. The sight unsettled her in a way she hadn't expected. Not fear, she was not a woman easily frightened, but a prickling sense that something old and forgotten had just returned. Before she could reach for her coat, a violent knocking rattled her front door. Bang, bang, bang. The sudden urgency jolted through the quiet cottage like a gunshot. Adelaide hurried across the room and opened the door to find young Edith Miller, barely 20, daughter of the village postmaster, drenched from rain, cheeks streaked with tears, breathing as though she had run the entire hill. "Mrs. Gray, please, please come quickly." Adelaide steadied the girl with a firm hand. "Edith, child, whatever is the matter?" Edith swallowed hard. They've found Mr. Gregory Lockridge. At Windlow Manor. He's dead." For a heartbeat, the world stilled. Gregory Lockridge, wealthy, influential, unpredictable, had a talent for stirring trouble, but death was not among the outcomes Adelaide expected for him tonight. "Dead?" she asked quietly. Edith nodded frantically. "Constable Hale says it looks like he fell. But he also says something feels wrong. And the old stairs were broken. It doesn't look natural. Mrs. Gray, please come. He asked for you specifically." "He asked for me?" Adelaide blinked, genuinely surprised. Edith wiped her face with her sleeve. "Well, not exactly asked. But Constable Hale says you're the only one who sees things clearly in this village. And he told me to fetch you straight away." Adelaide's expression softened. "Ah. That sounds more like our good constable." She reached for her coat, but paused at the window once more. The lantern had gone out. Windlow Manor was dark again, completely dark, as though the light had never shone at all. "Edith," Adelaide asked gently, "when was Mr. Lockridge found?" "Not long ago. Only minutes." And was the lantern burning then? Edith blinked. Lantern? No. I didn't see any lantern. There were no lights at all. Just darkness and him. Adelaide's pulse quickened. Whoever held that lantern had either fled, or remained inside. But she did not trouble Edith with that thought. Instead, she slipped into her coat and reached for her walking cane, a sturdy, polished thing she rarely needed but liked to carry. "Come along, then," she said, voice calm and steady. "We must not keep the constable waiting." They stepped out into the chill night. The wind swirled through the trees with a low murmur, carrying the scent of wet leaves and something else, something faint, charred, lingering. Adelaide glanced up the hill one last time. Windlow Manor loomed in the dark like a silent giant, watching them. Waiting. "Let us see," she murmured, "what secrets the night has chosen to uncover." And with that, she and Edith hurried toward Windlow Hill. Chapter 2. The broken staircase. Rain tapped gently against the cobblestones as Adelaide Gray and young Edith Miller hurried toward the narrow path that wound up Windlow Hill. The night had grown colder, the wind sharper, as though sensing the grim task ahead. The air carried the faint scent of burning wood, phantom smoke from a fire long extinguished. Adelaide moved steadily despite her age, her cane striking the wet ground in a measured rhythm. Edith kept close beside her, trembling with every gust of wind. "Steady now," Adelaide murmured. "Fear clouds the senses. And the senses are the only tools more reliable than any lantern." Edith nodded, though she did not fully understand. She clutched her shawl tighter. The path grew steeper as they climbed. Windlow Manor finally came into view between the crooked branches, vast, silent, and as foreboding as the stories told about it. Its broken chimneys jutted into the sky like blackened teeth, and its boarded windows stared down at them like blind eyes. No lights. No glow. No lantern. It was as if the earlier flicker Adelaide had seen had been swallowed by the night. At the manor's entrance, two figures stood waiting beneath the sagging archway. Constable Hale, his uniform damp with rain and his expression stern, and beside him stood Mr. Tobias Finch, the village doctor, a small man with spectacles fogged from the cold and nerves that always ran too thin. Hale straightened the moment he spotted Adelaide. "Thank heavens. I was starting to worry Edith didn't find you." "She did," Adelaide replied, giving Edith's trembling hand a reassuring squeeze. "Now, tell me what we're dealing with." Hale exhaled, rubbing the back of his neck. "Gregory Lockridge is dead. Found at the base of the old central staircase." His jaw tightened. "Neck broken. Likely fell." "Likely," Adelaide repeated softly. "But not certainly." Dr. Finch nodded miserably. Yes. Quite right. Could be accidental, but something feels peculiar." Adelaide's eyes drifted to the manor's interior. "Peculiar in what way?" Finch swallowed. "Well, his injuries are consistent with a fall, yes, but the stair railing was snapped. Snapped clean through. As if someone, or something, had forced it." Hale's expression darkened. "And that's not the only odd thing." He gestured for them to follow. Inside, Windlow Manor was a cathedral of shadows. Every sound carried, dripping water, creaking wood, the distant rattle of loosened window panes. The entrance hall was layered with dust except for the streaks of recent footprints. Adelaide walked slowly, eyes observing everything, the disturbed dust, the damp patches on the old hardwood, and faint drag marks leading inward. She said nothing yet. Observing always came first. As they approached the ruined staircase, her breath caught, not in fear, but in recognition. She had not stepped foot in this manor since the fire 16 years ago. It looked older now, more defeated, with its once grand railing splintered and its steps sagging like frail bones. Gregory Lockridge lay at the bottom, covered respectfully by a tarp. Hale knelt and pulled it back. The flickering lantern light, carried by Hale, cast Gregory's features in sharp relief. His eyes were closed, his head turned awkwardly to one side, his hands clenched. Adelaide did not look away. Death never frightened her, it simply demanded quiet understanding. "May I?" she asked softly. Hale nodded. She crouched as best she could, examining Gregory's clothing, his hands, the angle of his limbs, the dust on his shoes. Then she lifted her gaze to the staircase. "Constable," she said after a moment, "you said the railing snapped." Hale replied. "Right there, midway up. Looks old, though. Could have given way on its own." "Old wood breaks," Adelaide agreed. "But not usually like this." She touched the fractured piece gently. The break was sharp, not splintered. Forced. Deliberate. "And there is no lantern," she murmured, more to herself than to the others. Hale frowned. "Lantern?" Adelaide nodded slightly. "I saw a light here tonight. A lantern glowing from the window above." Hale stiffened. "A lantern? But none of us had one except the one I brought. And when we arrived, the manor was pitch dark." Edith gasped softly behind her. Dr. Finch shivered. "Then someone must have been here before us." "Someone who left." Adelaide rose slowly, cane tapping lightly against the floor. "Or someone who is still here." Hale immediately straightened, hand moving instinctively to the small baton at his belt. "You think someone's hiding inside?" "I think someone used a lantern to move about the manor safely," Adelaide replied, scanning the darkened corners. "And that someone had a purpose." Finch's voice trembled. "You mean, murder?" Adelaide didn't answer. Instead, she pointed her cane toward a second set of footprints leading away from the staircase, smaller than Gregory's, newer than the others, and heading deeper into the manor. Footprints no one had mentioned. Footprints only she had noticed. Hale followed her gaze and swore under his breath. "Those weren't here when we checked the body." "No," Adelaide agreed softly. "Which means the owner of those footprints moved after you arrived." Silence fell. A cold, tense silence. Then Adelaide said the words that turned all their blood to ice, "Constable Hale. I fear we are not alone in this house." Chapter 3, The Stranger in the Manor. For a long moment, no one moved. Windlow Manor seemed to breathe around them, groaning walls, shifting beams, the faint tap of dripping water echoing like footsteps in the distance. Constable Hale broke the silence first. "Edith," he whispered sharply, "step behind me. Dr. Finch, stay close." Edith obeyed instantly, clutching the back of Hale's coat with pale fingers. Dr. Finch, trembling hard enough that his spectacles jangled, hovered near the entrance hall. Adelaide, however, did not recoil. She lifted her lantern slightly, letting the light spill across the floor where the mysterious footprints trailed away. "They're recent," she murmured. "Too sharp on the edges to be more than a few minutes old." Hale exhaled through his teeth. "Meaning whoever made them is still inside." Adelaide nodded. "And likely watching us." Hale swallowed, putting a hand on his baton. "Right. I'll check the west corridor. Mrs. Gray, don't move far." "I assure you, Constable," Adelaide replied with a small smile, "I have no intention of chasing shadows." But she did intend to observe. As Hale moved cautiously down the dim corridor, lantern raised, Adelaide crouched to inspect the footprints more closely. They were narrow, the sole shape neat and pointed. "Female shoes," she murmured. "Or a man with exceedingly dainty taste." Dr. Finch blinked at her nervously. How can you tell?" "The heel impressions," Adelaide explained softly. "Light, careful, but distinct. Gregory Lockridge weighed at least 12 stone. These impressions belong to someone far lighter. Likely a woman." Edith shivered. But who would come here? And why now? People often return to secrets, Adelaide answered gently. Even in the dead of night. A sudden shout echoed from deeper in the manor. Hale! You there! Stop! Edith cried out, covering her mouth as Hale's boots thundered across the old floorboards, followed by a sharp crash and the scrape of something metallic. Adelaide straightened immediately, cane tapping firmly against the ground. Stay with me, she instructed the others, then led them along the hallway toward the commotion. They reached a long parlor lined with shattered windows where Hale stood alone, panting, lantern swinging wildly in his grasp. Adelaide scanned the room. Constable, what happened? I saw her, he gasped. A woman, dark coat, hood drawn. She bolted when she realized I spotted her. Ran straight through there, he pointed at a collapsed section of wall where rotten boards had given way. Out the back, he finished. Adelaide's eyes narrowed. You didn't see her face? Barely, he muttered. Quick as a rabbit, that one. But she had something in her hand. Looked like some sort of paper. Or notebook. Adelaide lifted her lantern, letting the glow stretch across the broken wall and into the stormy darkness beyond. The wind howled through the gap where a window once stood, flinging rain onto the parlor floor. She was prepared, Adelaide murmured. She knew the manor's layout well enough to escape through the weakest points. Hale frowned. You think she's familiar with the place? I think, Adelaide replied slowly, that she has been here before. Finch wrung his hands anxiously. I don't like this. Not one bit. A killer running about and oh, mercy, what if she meant to harm us too? Adelaide shook her head. No. If she were violent by nature, she would not have fled. She would have confronted us. Edith swallowed. So she was only here for something? Precisely. Adelaide gave Edith an approving glance. Something clearly worth braving an abandoned manor at night. Hale kicked at a loose board. And Gregory Lockridge came here for a reason too. The only question is, did they both seek the same thing? Adelaide's gaze drifted back to the staircase. The broken railing gleamed under the lantern light, freshly splintered. Constable, she said after a long, reflective pause, I wonder, what would compel Gregory to come here alone? And why tonight of all nights? Hale scratched his chin. You think he was lured? I think someone wanted him here. She raised her lantern toward a cracked portrait on the wall, one of the Lockridge family, painted decades earlier. Gregory stood beside his younger brother, Elias, the one believed to have died in the fire. The painted eyes of the brothers seemed to follow them. Edith spoke in a whisper. Mrs. Gray, do you think the fire 16 years ago has something to do with this? Adelaide did not answer immediately. Finally, she said, most tragedies in this world do not stand alone. They cast long shadows, reaching further than anyone expects. Behind them, a sudden echo rang out, a soft thud, like a door closing somewhere deep in the manor. Not the wind. Not the house settling. A door. Hale tightened his grip on his lantern. That came from the east wing. Adelaide lifted her chin. Then that, she said quietly, is where we must go next. Chapter 4, The Ledger of Ashes. The east wing of Windlow Manor had always been the most damaged section after the fire, its wooden beams charred, its wallpaper peeled like scorched skin. As Adelaide Gray led the group down its narrow hall, the temperature seemed to drop with every step. The storm outside battered the walls, but the stillness within was unnerving, suffocating. Constable Hale walked ahead, lantern held high. Edith and Dr. Finch followed in the middle, whispering frightened guesses. Adelaide remained at the back, her sharp eyes drifting over every doorway, every shadow. When they reached the end of the corridor, Hale held up a hand. There, he whispered. A door, half open. And on the floor just inside it, a faint smear of mud. fresh mud. Adelaide stepped forward, examined it briefly, then nodded. Someone entered recently. Whoever fled through the parlor must have come this way first. Hale pushed the door open with the end of his baton. The hinges groaned, a long, miserable sound that echoed through the ruined chamber beyond. The room itself was small, an old study, from the looks of it. Bookshelves bowed under the weight of dust and mold, a decaying desk sat slumped under a broken window. Rain dripped through the cracks in the ceiling, pooling on the warped floorboards. But Adelaide's attention locked immediately onto one thing, a single burnt ledger lying on the desk. She approached it with reverent caution. "Don't touch it yet," Hale warned. "Could be evidence." "It already is," Adelaide murmured. She leaned closer, letting her lantern illuminate the charred edges. The ledger was half destroyed, its cover singed black. But its clasp, gold, ornate, remained intact. "The fire," Adelaide said softly. "This survived the fire 16 years ago." Edith looked puzzled. "But why would it be here? Shouldn't it have burned completely?" Adelaide tapped the unburnt clasp. "Only if the fire reached it. This ledger must have been stored somewhere protected, moved here later." Hale frowned. "But by whom?" "By someone who knew exactly what was inside." With delicate fingers, Adelaide opened the ledger just enough to separate its pages. Some were blackened, but many remained legible. Names, dates, monetary sums, lists of items. Artifacts. Acquisitions. Trades. And at the bottom of one page, barely readable, a name Adelaide recognized, Elias Lockridge. Gregory's younger brother. The brother said to have perished in the fire. Adelaide's breath stilled. She scanned the damaged entry, piecing together what little remained. "Constable," she said, "this ledger records not financial transactions, but private dealings between the Lockridge brothers. Hidden exchanges." "Illegal?" Hale asked. "Some certainly suspicious." Her finger traced the damaged ink. "And here, this entry dated just before the fire. It mentions a disagreement over a shipment of artifacts." She paused. "And a warning. Someone wrote to Elias urging him to reveal everything." Hale stiffened. Could someone have wanted Elias dead? Or silenced? Adelaide replied. Dr. Finch, pale as a ghost, sputtered, but if this ledger contains all that, why hide it? Why bring it here?" Adelaide scanned the small room. The dust was disturbed. The shelves recently rifled through. And near the desk's edge, a small torn scrap of black fabric. She picked it up gently. "A cloak," she said. "Someone in a dark cloak came here looking for this ledger." Edith shuddered. "The same woman we saw?" "Likely." Hale knelt beside the desk, studying the floor. "But if she found the ledger, why leave it? Why not take it with her?" Adelaide answered quietly. "Because she was interrupted. We arrived sooner than expected." Rain thundered harder overhead, as though punctuating her words. Then Adelaide noticed something else. On the floor beside the ledger lay a triangular shard of glass. Not from the broken window, the edges of that were rounded with age. This shard was sharper, cleaner. Fresh. She held it toward the lantern. "Constable, this is from a lantern." Hale's eyes widened. "Meaning someone dropped theirs. Or smashed it deliberately to hide the evidence of their presence." A cold draft swept through the shattered window, fluttering the ledger's burnt pages. One page turned itself, revealing another partial entry, this one written in Gregory's distinct handwriting. Adelaide read it aloud, "The vault must remain sealed. If Elias's truth comes to light, it will destroy everything." Silence followed. No one breathed. Edith whispered, "Mrs. Gray, does that mean Elias wasn't the only victim of the fire?" Adelaide lifted her chin. I believe the fire was no accident. And someone has spent 16 years ensuring it remains buried. The corner of the room creaked suddenly, pulling their attention toward a narrow door they had overlooked, ajar, swaying lightly. Hale went pale. Was that open before? No, Adelaide said. A gust of wind shouldn't have moved a door that heavy. Someone had opened it recently. Edith clutched Adelaide's sleeve. Finch backed away until his shoulders hit the wall. Constable, Adelaide whispered, I believe our visitor is not far. And she may not be working alone. Hale stepped forward, lantern lifted, jaw set. Adelaide stayed him with a single touch. No rushing in. Whoever is watching us knows this manor better than we do. She stared into the darkness beyond the door, her voice low and resolute. And I fear we have only uncovered the first layer of a very old lie. Chapter 5. The housekeeper's burden morning crept slowly over Willowbridge village, drawing pale streaks of gold across the rooftops. It brought little warmth. Rumors burned hotter than the rising sun: Gregory Lockridge dead, Windlow Manor disturbed after 16 silent years, and a mysterious woman seen slipping through the halls like a ghost carrying secrets. By the time Adelaide Gray returned to her cottage, she had been awake for nearly a full night. Yet she did not rest. She methodically brewed tea, laid out freshly sharpened pencils, and reread her notes on the ledger and the strange woman. At precisely 9 o'clock, a frantic knock rattled her front door. Adelaide opened it to find Mrs. Ruth Brenwell, the long-serving Lockridge housekeeper, clutching her handbag as if it were a lifeline. Her usually stern face was blotched with worry, and her hair, normally coiled into a severe bun, hung loose at her temples. Mrs. Gray, she gasped, I need to speak with you. Please. Adelaide stepped aside at once. Of course, Mrs. Brenwell. Come in. The housekeeper entered, but her eyes darted around nervously, as though expecting someone to jump from the shadows. Tea? Adelaide offered gently. Mrs. Brenwell shook her head. No, thank you. My stomach is in knots as it is. Adelaide led her to a chair. The housekeeper sat, fidgeting with her gloves until the leather creaked. I suppose you've heard, she whispered. About Mr. Lockridge's passing. I was there last night, Adelaide replied softly. I saw him myself. Mrs. Brenwell swallowed hard. Tears rimmed her eyes though she fought them back with practiced willpower. He was a difficult man, she murmured, but I served the Lockridges for 38 years. I knew Gregory when he was a boy, before his father died, before the fire. Her voice trembled on the last word. Adelaide leaned forward. Mrs. Brenwell, may I ask, what brings you here now? The housekeeper hesitated, then reached trembling fingers into her apron pocket. From it she withdrew a small brass key. Old, ornate, shaped like a twisted branch. Adelaide's breath caught. Is that? Yes, Mrs. Brenwell whispered. The vault key. The one sealed after the fire. Adelaide studied her face. Why bring it to me? That's just it, the housekeeper said, voice cracking. I didn't bring it. I found it, this morning, in my apron. Her hands clutched the fabric. But I swear to you, Mrs. Gray, it wasn't there last night. I checked my pockets over and over, terrified I'd lost it. Adelaide's eyes sharpened. Someone slipped it back to you. Mrs. Brenwell nodded in agony. Someone with access. Someone who wanted it hidden, but not destroyed. The key glinted in the sunlight like a shard of truth. Tell me, Adelaide said softly, how did you come to possess this in the first place? Mrs. Brenwell closed her eyes. A single tear escaped. 16 years ago, after the fire, Gregory gave it to me. He said it was for safekeeping. That I must tell no one, not even Elias's widow. Not the police. And certainly not their family lawyer. Adelaide stiffened. Henry Poirot? Yes, Mrs. Brenwell whispered. Gregory said Poirot couldn't be trusted. That certain things in the vault would ruin the family if exposed. And you obeyed? I owed the Lockridges everything, she said simply. But I always wondered why Gregory himself didn't keep the key. Adelaide tapped her cane lightly. Perhaps he feared someone would take it from him. Mrs. Brenwell's gaze dropped to her trembling hands. 2 nights ago, for the first time in 16 years. Gregory asked to see the key again. Adelaide's breath stilled. He came to you personally? Yes. He looked frightened. Truly frightened. He told me he planned to go to the manor the next night. That something long buried was clawing its way to the surface. The housekeeper sobbed quietly. And now he's dead. Adelaide placed a gentle hand over hers. Mrs. Brenwell, you must understand. Gregory was not killed by chance. Someone orchestrated his fall, possibly the same person who slipped the key back into your pocket. Mrs. Brenwell stared at her in horror. You mean, the killer was near me? Close enough to touch me? Close enough, Adelaide said softly, to trust you would never suspect. The housekeeper hesitated, then whispered, Mrs. Gray, there is something else. Something I should have said years ago. Adelaide waited, patient. Mrs. Brenwell swallowed. On the morning after the fire. I saw someone leaving the manor. Someone no one believed me about. Adelaide's heart slowed. Who? A long pause. Mrs. Brenwell's voice dropped to a trembling whisper. Elias Lockridge. Silence fell like a stone. Adelaide sat back, eyes widening, not in shock, but in the quiet, inevitable confirmation of a suspicion blooming in her mind. Mrs. Brenwell sobbed into her gloves. I know he was declared dead. I know the coroner said the remains were his. But I saw a figure, so like Elias, slipping through the smoke. And when I called out, he vanished. Adelaide breathed slowly. If Elias lived, she murmured, then the fire was not a tragedy, but a cover. Mrs. Brenwell nodded desperately. I think someone finished what the fire began, last night. Adelaide rose, taking the key gently. Mrs. Brenwell, she said, you have done the bravest possible thing. And now, I believe, our killer has no idea what you've just revealed. The housekeeper trembled. What will you do? Adelaide tucked the key into her coat, eyes fierce. I intend, she said, to open the vault. Magnifying glass tilted right. Chapter 6. The vault beneath the ashes. Windlow Manor loomed against the late afternoon sky like a wounded beast, silent, brooding, scarred by time. Adelaide Gray stood at its entrance once more, the brass vault key resting in her coat pocket like a pulse beneath her fingertips. Constable Hale, lantern in hand, eyed the manor uneasily. Are you certain about this, Mrs. Gray? That vault was sealed for good reason. And if what Mrs. Brenwell said is true, then the vault may hold the truth the fire tried to bury, Adelaide finished calmly. If Gregory Lockridge died seeking it, we have a responsibility to see what cost him his life. Hale exhaled and nodded. Right. But we're not going in alone this time. He turned to the 2 men behind him, Mr. Theo Marsh, Gregory's sleek business partner, and Henry Poirot, the pale, tight-lipped family lawyer. Both had been summoned under Hale's insistence. Poirot adjusted his gloves nervously. Constable, I fail to see how disturbing old rooms will be of any aid. A tragic fall is a tragic fall. Adelaide's eyes narrowed. A fall is rarely accidental when a railing is deliberately weakened. Poirot's jaw twitched. Theo Marsh, by contrast, looked almost eager. Well, let's get on with it then, he said lightly. If the vault's been sealed all these years, perhaps Gregory stored something valuable there. Adelaide watched his face carefully. Too eager. Too smooth. Gentlemen, she said, whatever lies below may concern each of you more deeply than you realize. They entered the manor in a somber line. The air was still, as if holding its breath. Dust danced in the lantern glow. Shadows clung to corners like wary spectators. As they descended the stone staircase to the cellar level, a deeper chill settled around them, heavy, damp, the smell of earth long undisturbed. The cellar was cavernous, filled with old trunks, broken crates, and walls warped by smoke damage. At the far end stood a massive iron door, engraved with the Lockridge crest. The vault. A thick chain had once barred it shut, but the rusted links lay broken on the floor, snapped clean through. Hale stiffened. Snapped? That chain wasn't cut. No, Adelaide murmured, kneeling to examine the metal. The break was jagged, unnatural. It was forced apart. Recently. Poirot stumbled backward. Forced? By who? Why? Theo Marsh scoffed. Maybe the heat cracking over time, Adelaide interrupted with a soft, cold smile. Metal does not tear itself open after 16 years, Mr. Marsh. Theo looked away, throat tightening. Adelaide stood, withdrawing the brass key. Every eye fixed on it. Before we proceed, she said, I want each of you to answer a question. She pointed her cane toward Poirot. Mr. Poirot, did Gregory speak to you yesterday? Poirot swallowed. Briefly. He wanted to discuss financial matters. He was always disorganized. I assumed nothing of it. Adelaide shifted her gaze to Theo Marsh. And you? Theo shrugged, but too casually. Saw him in the afternoon. He mentioned going to the manor but didn't say why. I figured he was chasing ghosts again. Gregory loved his secrets. Adelaide filed both answers away. Then she slowly inserted the key into the vault lock. It clicked. The iron door groaned open, exhaling stale, frigid air. Hale raised his lantern, and the light spilled into the dark chamber beyond. They stepped inside. The vault was larger than any of them expected, walls lined with old cabinets, shelves filled with ledgers sealed in wax, crates marked with foreign symbols, and velvet-lined cases containing strange, ancient artifacts. Golden statuettes. Carved stones. Textiles embroidered in languages long forgotten. Theo whistled softly. Good Lord. Gregory was sitting on a treasure trove. No, Adelaide corrected. Elias was. Poirot stiffened. That's impossible. Elias died, did he? Adelaide asked quietly. She moved toward a long drawer built into the wall. It was cracked open, as if someone had rifled through it recently. Inside lay an assortment of documents sealed in wax, except for one envelope lying on top. The seal broken. Adelaide lifted it. Hale leaned over her shoulder. What is it? He asked. A will, Adelaide said, her voice grave. Gregory Lockridge's last will and testament, dated 2 days ago. Theo's breath hitched. And here, Adelaide said, pulling a second document from the drawer, the previous will. 16 years old. She unfolded both side by side. The difference was glaring. The old will named Verena Lockridge, Gregory's niece, as sole heir. The new will named Theo Marsh. Theo blanched, then tried to laugh. I didn't know about that. Gregory must have changed it recently, perhaps after an argument with Verena. Adelaide silenced him with a raised hand. Mr. Marsh, the ink on this will is barely dry. And I know the handwriting of a forger when I see it. Poirot went rigid. Theo stepped back. Hold on, you can't think I forged a legal document. I do not think you forged it, Adelaide said softly. Because forgery requires exceptional skill. Her eyes slid to Poirot. The lawyer. Poirot's face drained of color. His knees wobbled. "This is absurd, Mrs. Gray, you have no proof," but he was sweating. Trembling. Panicked. Adelaide had seen guilt many times. It was a familiar scent. And it thickened the air of the vault now. Hale moved closer. "Mr. Poirot, is there something you wish to explain?" Poirot's lips parted, but before he could speak, a loud clang echoed from upstairs. A door slamming. Then footsteps pounding rapidly across the floorboards overhead. Hale swung his lantern toward the stairway. "Someone else is here." Adelaide's pulse quickened. Because she knew exactly who it must be. The woman in the cloak. And now she was trapping them inside the vault. Chapter 7. The vault's whisper. The vault door groaned behind Adelaide and Constable Hale as they stepped deeper into the underground chamber. The lantern Hale carried cast a trembling pool of light across the stone walls, revealing shelves thick with dust, locked metal drawers, and rows of artifacts carefully preserved by time, or by someone determined to hide them. Adelaide moved with steady purpose, her gloved fingertips trailing lightly along the nearest shelf. "This room has been undisturbed for years," she murmured, "but not long enough." Hale frowned. "Meaning?" She pointed to the dust. A thin, unmistakable disturbance, a pattern of recent movement, small enough to easily miss, but Adelaide Gray rarely missed anything. "Someone has been here within the last 2 days." Hale exhaled, shoulders tensing. "Then whoever killed Gregory may have come down here first." Adelaide nodded, stepping further in. "Or returned afterward." The air shifted suddenly. A faint draft, a breath of cold from behind them. Hale spun around. "Did you feel that?" Adelaide lifted one finger for silence. And then, click. The vault door swung shut with brutal force, the clang echoing through the stone chamber. The lantern flickered. Hale lunged to the door, rattling the handle. "Locked, someone locked us in." Adelaide's eyes narrowed, not in fear, but in thought. She listened, she always listened. Footsteps. Light, quick, purposeful. Fleeing. "She wanted us down here," Adelaide whispered. "She wanted us out of the way." "She?" Hale echoed. "The figure we saw upstairs," Adelaide said calmly. "Her height, her stride. I'm quite certain." Hale pounded on the door again, but the thick metal held firm. "Unless you've got a clever plan, we're stuck." Adelaide turned her lantern toward the far wall. When a room is designed to hide things, it often hides an exit as well. Hale followed her gaze, still rattled. "Hidden passage?" "Precisely." She walked toward a row of steel drawers. One drawer was slightly ajar, too slightly, the angle too deliberate. Adelaide tugged it open. Inside lay stacks of Gregory's ledgers, meticulously kept. She flipped through them, searching. Then she froze. A page had been removed, torn cleanly, recently. She examined the thin residue of paper still clinging to the binding. "This missing page," she said softly, "was taken within the last 24 hours. By the killer?" Hale asked. "Or someone who fears the killer," she replied. "But either way, it answers why Gregory was in the manor that night. He discovered a secret worth killing for." Hale swallowed. "And someone's willing to trap us for getting close." Adelaide set the ledger aside and examined the wall behind the drawers. The stones bore faint scorch marks. "Ah," she whispered. "This is where the fire 16 years ago began. The blaze didn't start upstairs, it started down here." Hale stiffened. "Are you certain?" "I rarely speculate without reason," she answered gently. "Which means the fire was no accident at all." Hale muttered a curse under his breath. "So someone killed Gregory's brother, and now Gregory." Adelaide examined the edges of the scorch marks. They formed an odd angle, too clean. She pressed her palm to a narrow groove hidden beneath the soot. A soft grinding answered her touch. The wall shifted, stones sliding apart with a groaning sigh. Hale blinked. "You've got to be joking." "A ventilation shaft," Adelaide said, stepping back to allow the stones to separate further. "Installed to prevent artifact decay. Gregory's brother must have known about it, and someone used it to start the fire." A faint breeze wafted through the opening, cool, fresh, leading upward. Hale grinned, relieved. And a way out. But Adelaide wasn't smiling. Something glittered at the threshold of the passage. She knelt, picking up the object carefully. A button. Not just any button, delicate mother of pearl, engraved with a tiny vine motif. Handmade, expensive, the kind usually seen on tailored garments. And one Adelaide had seen before. She rolled it between her fingers thoughtfully. "You know, Hale. Mrs. Brenwell mentioned her apron pocket was disturbed the night Gregory died." Hale blinked. "The housekeeper? You think she—" "No," Adelaide cut in. "Not Mrs. Brenwell. But someone she was near." She held up the button. "This belongs to Verena Lockridge. I noticed it missing from her coat yesterday." Hale stared at the button, stunned. "The niece? But she's been distraught." "Anxiety and guilt look rather similar," Adelaide said, slipping the button into her pocket. "But I won't accuse her yet. Someone could have taken her coat last night. Or planted evidence." She stepped into the narrow passageway and gestured for Hale to follow. "Come along. We've been given just enough clues, but not the truth." "Not yet." Hale lifted the lantern and joined her inside. "Where does this lead?" Adelaide's voice was calm, but laced with purpose. "If I'm correct, straight to the manor's east wing. And to whoever tried to trap us." As they moved upward, the stone tunnel whispering with echoes behind them, Adelaide Gray felt a certainty settle in her chest. The killer was becoming desperate. Which meant the truth was very, very close. Chapter 8, Echoes of the East Wing. The passageway rose in a steep incline, the air cooling as Adelaide and Hale climbed through the narrow stone tunnel. Their lantern cast thin streaks of gold over the rough walls, turning every shadow into something watchful. Adelaide moved unhurriedly but with certainty, her steps measured and quiet. Hale puffed behind her, lantern rattling with every awkward stride. "You'd think," he muttered, "that secret tunnels would be built with a bit more headroom." "Secret tunnels," Adelaide said gently, "rarely prioritize comfort." The incline ended suddenly at a panel of old wood. Adelaide pressed her ear to it. Silence. She pushed gently. The panel gave way with surprising ease, swinging inward to reveal a once opulent corridor now surrendered to dust. They had emerged into the east wing. Hale stepped out first, lantern lifted high. "No footprints. Doesn't look like anyone's been down this hall in years." Adelaide followed, her gaze sweeping the faded wallpaper and crumbling portraits. "Appearances are often chosen deliberately," she murmured. "A stage set to disguise recent activity." She knelt, examining the ground. A faint smudge of soot. Not old. She touched it lightly with her glove. "We're close," she whispered. A sudden crash echoed through the corridor. Hale whirled around. "What was that?" Adelaide's expression barely flickered. "Someone in a hurry." They moved toward the sound, passing doorways long forgotten, a locked sewing room, a linen closet collapsed under its own weight, a guest room thick with mildew. At the very end of the hallway, a soft glow filtered out from beneath a half-open door. Hale reached for the doorknob. Adelaide touched his sleeve lightly. Slowly. "She may still be inside." He nodded and eased the door open. Inside, the room was in ruins, dusty sheets draped furniture like shrouds, and the ceiling sagged with damp. But in the center of the chaos sat a small table, and on it, an oil lamp still warm. Recently lit. And beside it, a stack of papers weighed down with a rusted candlestick. Adelaide crossed the room instantly. Hale followed, eyes darting around nervously. No sign of her. She left in haste. That crash we heard was her escape, Adelaide said, lifting the papers. At the top was a faded photograph, Gregory Lockridge and his brother, Everett, standing before Windlow Manor, smiling in better days. Behind them, the manor looked whole, unmarred by fire or time. Hale leaned over her shoulder. Everett died in the fire, right? So we were told, Adelaide murmured. But Gregory believed differently. He left a note saying so. Beneath the photograph was a second sheet, yellowed and crackling at the edges, a letter addressed to Gregory, dated 16 years earlier. She read aloud, "If you proceed with the vault excavation, you will destroy everything. The artifacts must remain hidden, or the truth will consume us both. I beg you, brother, stop this." E. L. Everett Lockridge, Hale whispered. Adelaide nodded. He feared what Gregory was excavating down in the vault. And the fire, Hale began. Was intended to stop it, Adelaide finished softly. Hale ran a hand through his hair. But Everett died in the fire. So someone else must have said it, trying to help him, protect the secret. Adelaide placed the letter aside, her expression sharpening. Or Everett did not die at all. Hale froze. Come again? She tapped the signature. This handwriting matches another note Gregory kept, one dated long after Everett's supposed death. Hale's lantern rattled slightly. You're telling me Everett Lockridge might be alive? I am suggesting, Adelaide replied calmly, that a man willing to burn his own manor to protect secrets might also be willing to disappear afterward. Before Hale could respond, a soft scuffing sound came from the hallway. Adelaide turned sharply. A shadow slipped past the doorframe. Hale bolted out into the corridor, lantern swinging wildly. Hey! Stop! But the hall was empty, the air still. Adelaide stepped beside him, her voice level. She's gone again. But she's growing careless. Hale frowned. Why keep showing up? Why not flee the village altogether? Because she needs something, Adelaide answered, tapping the letter against her palm. Something only the manor can give her. I suspect she is trying to retrieve the missing ledger page, the one revealing the truth of the fire. Hale exhaled, feeling the weight of the case settle on him. So who is she? Verena? The housekeeper? Someone else entirely? Adelaide smiled ever so slightly. If we chase shadows, we'll find only darkness. Instead, we must let the truth come to us. And it will. Desperation drives people to foolish choices. She tucked the photograph and letter into her coat. For now, we keep these somewhere safe. Hale nodded. Where to next? Adelaide looked down the length of the east wing, her eyes narrowing at the faint imprint of a boot heel near the staircase, fresh, likely minutes old. Upstairs, she said. To Gregory's private study. If Everett wrote to him, Gregory would have kept more than one letter. And whoever trapped us in the vault knows it. She lifted her lantern. Come, constable. The truth is not hiding. It is circling us. They headed toward the grand stairwell, footsteps echoing softly, while something unseen moved in the manor above them, watching. And waiting. Par. Chapter 9, The Study of Silent Truths. The staircase groaned under Adelaide's careful steps, each board sighing as though the old manor were finally awakening after years of forced silence. Constable Hale followed close behind, lantern raised, its glow painting trembling shadows over the peeling wallpaper. A draft wound through the corridor like a whisper of breath. Adelaide paused, listening, letting the quiet speak. Someone was here recently, she murmured. The air is unsettled. Hale glanced around nervously. If that cloaked woman doubled back, she didn't, Adelaide cut in softly. She wouldn't risk crossing our path until she has what she came for. And Everett? Hale added, voice hushed. If he's alive, he'd know this house better than anyone. Adelaide's expression didn't change, but her eyes narrowed. We must prepare for every possibility. Even the ones that appear impossible. Hale swallowed and tightened his grip on the lantern. At the end of the upper landing stood a heavy wooden door, the entrance to Gregory Lockridge's private study. Adelaide's gaze fixed on it. Gregory conducted all his important matters here. If Everett communicated with him, this is where the trail leads. Hale tried the handle. It didn't budge. Locked. Adelaide reached into her coat and produced the old key Mrs. Brenwell had guarded so fiercely. Gregory entrusted this key to the housekeeper not to secure the vault, but to safeguard the house's most sensitive rooms. The key clicked smoothly. The door swung inward with a long, mournful groan. Inside, the study smelled of paper, aged leather, and extinguished secrets. Tall shelves lined the walls, bending under the weight of ledgers, artifacts, and scrolls that seemed far too valuable for a country manor. A large desk dominated the center of the room, its surface buried under stacks of scribbled notes and rolled parchments. Adelaide stepped inside first. Her lantern illuminated clouds of dust rising at her feet. Hale shut the door behind them cautiously. Something scratched faintly overhead, perhaps a loose beam, perhaps something else. Adelaide ignored it for now. Search for personal correspondence, she instructed gently. Anything dated around the years after the fire. Gregory kept meticulous records, even when he wished to appear careless. Hale nodded, moving to the far shelves. Adelaide approached the desk. Its drawers were locked, but the keys hung neatly from a hook beneath the surface, a trusting habit Gregory had likely never questioned until it was too late. She opened the first drawer. Receipts. Artifact valuations. Notes written in Gregory's bold hand. She rifled through them with precise efficiency. The second drawer. Maps. Old excavation sketches. A half-finished letter addressed to a solicitor. The third drawer, empty. Too empty. Adelaide's brows lifted slightly. Hale? Yeah? Do you notice anything missing? Hale turned, scanning the room. This place is practically overflowing. Precisely, she said calmly. Except for one space, right here. She tapped the empty drawer. A faint outline marked where a single envelope or folder once Saturday. Hale, this is where the missing ledger page must have been stored. Hale's eyes widened. So whoever trapped us in the vault has already been here. And left in haste, Adelaide added. She pointed to the dust layer on the desk, disturbed in streaks, as though someone had grabbed papers carelessly. A sudden thump resonated from the hallway beyond the study door. Hale jumped. She's still in the house. Or someone else is, Adelaide murmured. Another sound followed, lighter, quicker, the soft padding of steps retreating down the corridor. Hale stepped toward the door, hand on the knob. Adelaide raised her hand sharply. Wait. Hale froze. She tilted her head, listening, then whispered, there are two sets of footsteps. One heading downstairs, and another above us. Hale paled. Above? There's no guest room up there. Only the attic. And the attic, Adelaide said slowly, is where Gregory stored unfinished work. She moved toward the far corner of the study, toward the narrow ladder leading upward into darkness. Hale, follow the person heading downstairs. Do not confront her alone. Observe only. And you? Hale asked. I will see what waits above. Hale hesitated, unwilling to split up. Adelaide smiled gently, though her eyes remained stern with purpose. The truth rarely comes to those who stand still, Constable. Go. Hale nodded reluctantly and slipped out the door, lantern bobbing as he followed the fading footsteps down the stairs. Adelaide took a deep breath and placed her hand on the ladder rungs. The attic hatch creaked softly as she pushed it open. The darkness above felt thicker, woven with the dust of forgotten years. She lifted her lantern, letting its glow seep into the shadows. Old trunks lined the walls. An easel sat in one corner beside a stack of drawings. A coat rack leaned crookedly beneath a window mottled with grime. And at the very center of the attic, someone had cleared a space, fresh footprints circling it. Adelaide stepped forward. Something glinted on the attic floor. She crouched and picked it up carefully. A small brass signet ring. Inscribed with the initials, E.L. Her breath stilled. Everett Lockridge's ring. But it looked polished, worn recently, not an artifact gathering dust for 16 years. As she rose, the floorboard behind her groaned. Not from settling. From weight. Someone was up here with her. Watching. And very, very close. Chapter 10, The Unmasking in the Attic. The attic's musty air pressed close around Adelaide, thick with the weight of past decades, and the weight of the unseen presence sharing the space with her. She did not move at first. She let the silence breathe, expand, settle. The floorboard behind her creaked again, subtle but unmistakable. Adelaide turned slowly, lantern raised. "Good evening," she said softly into the shadows. "If you intend to strike, do remember I am rather old. I'd prefer not to fall dramatically." A figure stepped forward from behind a stack of trunks. Cloaked in dark fabric, hood drawn low. The same silhouette from the vault. The same deliberate, quiet movements. "Mrs. Gray," a woman's voice whispered, tight and restrained. "You never should have come up here." Adelaide's eyes softened. "And yet here you are, cornered in your own memories." The hood slipped back. Verena Lockridge. Her face was pale, streaked with sweat and panic. Her breath came fast, too fast. The sleeves of her coat were dusted with soot, one button missing, replaced by a crude stitch of dark thread. The matching button lay in Adelaide's pocket. "I suppose you found the ring?" Verena said, nodding toward the object in Adelaide's hand. "Everett's ring," Adelaide replied quietly. "Found here, not in a vault or a drawer, but on the floor. Recently worn." Verena's lips trembled. It was his. Adelaide stepped closer, slow, gentle. "Was?" "Verena, you must tell the truth now. Did Everett survive the fire?" Verena's breath hitched, and for a moment the attic air tightened. Then, she nodded. "He survived," she whispered. "The fire burned half the east wing, but he escaped through the ventilation passage. Gregory helped him flee. They made everyone believe he died to protect him." Adelaide exhaled slowly. "To protect him from whom?" Verena swallowed. "From the people who wanted the artifacts he guarded. Those relics in the vault, they're worth millions. Everett destroyed the excavation records to keep the wrong people away." "And Gregory?" Adelaide asked. "He protected his brother for years. But when he found the ledger page," she stopped, breath trembling. "He realized someone betrayed them the night of the fire." A soft rustle of fabric sounded from the far corner of the attic. Adelaide's eyes flicked toward it. She lowered her voice. "Verena, you are not alone, are you?" A faint groan came from behind an old wardrobe. Adelaide approached slowly, lantern held high. There, hunched against the wall, wrapped in blankets and barely conscious, was a gaunt elderly man with hollow cheeks and silver-flecked hair. He looked up weakly. Gregory Lockridge's brother. Everett Lockridge. Alive. Hale's stunned voice echoed up the ladder. "Mrs. Gray? Are you all right?" Adelaide raised a hand. "Careful, Hale. We have guests." Hale climbed into the attic, froze mid-step at the sight of Everett, then muttered something unpolice-like under his breath. Everett breathed shallowly, voice cracking. "I did not intend for any of this. I only wanted to finish what I began." Verena rushed to his side. "He's been hiding in the house for days. When Gregory died, I brought him back here. I didn't know what else to do." Adelaide knelt beside Everett, checking his pulse with quiet care. "Who attacked Gregory? Was it you?" Everett's eyes widened with pain. "No. I begged him to stop, to hide the truth of the fire. But he insisted on exposing me, on clearing my name. He asked the lawyer, Poirot, to help." Adelaide sighed softly. "Gregory trusted the wrong man." Verena bowed her head. "Poirot betrayed him. He forged the will. When Gregory confronted him at the manor, Poirot pushed him down the staircase." Hale clenched his jaw. "And you trapped us in the vault?" Verena's voice cracked. "Yes. I was terrified you'd find Everett and blame him. I didn't mean to hurt you. I only needed time to move him." Adelaide nodded slowly. "Desperation does unkind things to good people." Hale looked between them. "Everett needs a doctor. Now." Adelaide rose. "And Verena must answer for obstructing our investigation. But she is no murderer." Verena's shoulders slumped. "I never wanted any of this. I only wanted to keep what little family I had left." Adelaide approached her gently. "Your uncle died trying to reveal the truth. Honor him now by helping us finish what he began." Verena closed her eyes, tears falling. Then she nodded. Hale signaled down the ladder for help. "We'll get Everett to the infirmary discreetly. No crowds, no rumors." Adelaide placed a hand on Everett's shoulder. "You will no longer need to hide. The truth about the fire, and about Poirot, will be made clear." Everett's frail lips twitched into a faint, grateful smile. "You see more than most, Mrs. Gray." Adelaide smiled back, warm and calm. "Observing is simply a habit. Seeing is a choice." As Hale assisted Verena in carrying Everett down the ladder, Adelaide stepped back into the center of the attic. Her lantern cast wide golden arcs across the space. The manor no longer felt haunted, only weary. Secrets, once heavy and writhing in shadows, now exhaled into the open air. She whispered to the stillness around her, "It is done." And as she descended the ladder, lantern in hand, dawn broke across Willowbridge village, pale and hopeful. The truth had finally risen with it.